By now you should be very comfortable conjugating a verb like luo, what we call a so-called thematic verb, luo, balo, whatever it might be, lambano, in the present and imperfect. Now we're going to, and you should be comfortable in the other tenses too, but what we're going to do is we're going to move over to contract verbs. And what a contract verb is, these are verbs whose stems end in an alpha, an epsilon, or an omicron. And we're going to call them an alpha contract, an epsilon contract, and an omicron contract. And what that means is that in the present and imperfect, and only in those tenses, because this stem vowel only exists in the present and imperfect in that first principal part, is this vowel is going to go away. It's going to contract into the ending. So for example, the verb poieo, I make, an Athenian, and these contract verbs apply primarily to Attic Greek. An Athenian would not say poieo, he would say poio. He would contract that epsilon into the omega. And so in learning contract verbs, you're not so much learning new endings. The endings are going to be the same ones you learned for luo. Instead, what you're going to be learning is the rules as to what happens to these vowels in the stem when they encounter an ending. So the bright side of contract verbs is there are only two tenses, present and imperfect. Oh, we shouldn't forget the infinitive, present infinitive, and the present imperatives too. But they only deal in the first principal part. That's one nice thing. The second nice thing is they only, you have no new endings to learn. You only need to learn how the contraction works. And then the third nice thing about contract verbs is that their principal parts are very consistent. So epsilon contracts like poieo, poieso, epoiesa, pepoieka, pepoiemai, epoiethin, all epsilon contracts, as far as I know, are going to follow this same pattern. So this poieo, and you should note the dictionary will always give you the uncontracted form, but all epsilon contracts will follow this principal part pattern. Eso, esa, eka, and this reduplication there, amai, and athin. So all of that sweating you did memorizing principal parts up to this point, when you come across a contract verb, you know those principal parts, with one exception that I know of. And I'll let you know that in just a second. Alpha contracts follow the same pattern. Ao, eso, and this missing enikesa, I just forgot to type it. But esa, just like esa up there. Nanikeka, eka, just like pepoieka. Nanikemai, amai, and enikethin. The one exception is an alpha contract, and that's the verb horao, which is just highly irregular in general. Memorize those principal parts and move on. But all other alpha contracts will follow this pattern. And finally, omicron contracts look a little different, but they actually follow very similar rules. So dulao, to enslave, duloso. This actually follows the same concept. We're just lengthening a different kind of vowel. So we're lengthening the omicron. So duloso, edulosa. Again, we're lengthening an omicron, not an alpha or an epsilon. So edulosa, deduloka, dedulomai, and edulothin. Same concept. All omicron contracts that I know again follow this pattern. Now, it's just a matter of learning how those contract.